My name is Jessica Parker, and I'm 32 years old. 3 years ago, my entire world shifted on an ordinary Tuesday morning in November. I was checking my phone before a meeting when my father's text appeared. "We all agreed you're not invited to Thanksgiving this year. It's better for everyone." My hands trembled as I stared at those words, mind racing through memories of 29 Thanksgivings spent around my parents' mahogany table. Yes, there had been tension since I'd announced my engagement, but nothing that warranted complete exclusion from a family holiday. That text message was the moment I finally realized I deserved better. Before I share what led to this heartbreaking message and how it changed my life forever, I'd love to know where you're watching from today. Drop your location in the comments, hit that like button if family holiday drama resonates with you, and subscribe to join our community of people healing from family wounds. My story might be painful, but I promise there's light at the end of this tunnel. From the outside, the Parkers were the quintessential American success story. We lived in an elegant colonial house in Westport, Connecticut, with perfectly manicured hedges and a sweeping driveway. My father, William Parker, built his financial consulting firm from scratch, projecting an image of the self-made man who commanded respect wherever he went. At 58, he still maintained the authoritative presence that had dominated our family dynamic for decades. My mother, Diane, 5 years his junior, had abandoned her promising teaching career when she became pregnant with my older brother. She channeled her intelligence and energy into becoming the perfect corporate wife and mother. Her dinner parties were legendary in my father's business circle, her volunteer work strategic for maintaining our family's social standing. Behind her warm smile and impeccable hostess skills, she had mastered the art of smoothing over William's harshness with gentle excuses. "Your father is just tired from work, or he wants what's best for you." My older brother Michael, now 36, had followed directly in our father's footsteps. Cornell Business School, then straight into finance, he married Charlotte, a woman who seamlessly fit the Parker family mold. Michael could do no wrong in our father's eyes, especially after joining the family firm and bringing in several major clients. His success became the measuring stick against which all family achievements were judged. My younger sister Rachel, 28, had perfected the role of family peacekeeper. Sensitive to the slightest shift in our father's mood, she could diffuse tensions with a well-timed question about his latest golf game or business success. She learned early that avoiding conflict meant avoiding our father's disapproval, a lesson that shaped her into a people-pleaser who rarely expressed her genuine feelings. Then there was me, Jessica, the middle child, who could never quite conform to the Parker blueprint. From childhood, I questioned the family rules that seemed arbitrary and controlling. Why did we all need to be home for Sunday dinner regardless of other commitments? Why was Michael allowed to challenge our father on business topics, while my questions about family decisions were dismissed as talking back? Our carefully curated image was maintained through annual rituals. Every December, we posed for the Parker family Christmas card in coordinating outfits navy and burgundy one year, hunter green and gold the next. These photos were sent to over 200 business associates and friends, visual proof of our perfect family harmony. The summer beach vacation in Martha's Vineyard was documented with similar precision, each smiling photo hiding the tension that inevitably erupted when confined together for a week. Family business stays in the family was our unspoken rule. When my father berated the waitress at a restaurant, we smiled uncomfortably and left an extra-large tip. When he criticized my mother's appearance before business functions, we pretended not to notice her retreating to the bathroom to fix whatever he found lacking. The facade was preserved at all costs. I recognized the emotional manipulation early, but lacked the vocabulary to name it. When I brought home straight, as with 1B+, the focus was invariably on the B+. "What happened here?" my father would ask, the accomplishment of the as evaporating instantly. My watercolor, that won a regional art contest at age 12, received a brief "that's nice" before he turned to Michael's second-place finish in a math competition. That's the kind of achievement that gets you into Ivy League schools. The perfect daughter standard remained perpetually out of reach. My clothes were too casual or too flashy. My career aspirations impractical or beneath our family's standing. My boyfriends too boring or too ambitious, somehow always lacking regardless of their qualities. Meanwhile, Michael's every decision received enthusiastic approval, and Rachel's cautious choices never rocked the family boat enough to draw criticism. William's put-downs came disguised as helpful advice. That haircut doesn't flatter your face shape, sweetie. I'm just being honest because I care. Or, that writing program has low employment rates. I'm only thinking about your future. Each comment delivered with just enough concern to make objection seem ungrateful. My first major betrayal came at 17, when I was accepted to Rhode Island School of Design with a partial scholarship. Instead of celebration, my announcement at dinner was met with my father's frown. Art school? Jessica, be realistic. What kind of career will that lead to? Michael will be graduating from Cornell next year. He understands the importance of practical education. My mother quickly jumped in. Your father just wants security for you, sweetie. Maybe consider business with an art minor. That night, I cried in my bedroom while my achievements, a prestigious acceptance and scholarship, were diminished and dismissed. It was the first time I clearly saw how conditional my family's approval was, but not the last. Despite their disapproval, I attended RISD, setting the stage for years of subtle punishment for choosing my own path. The dinner that ultimately led to my Thanksgiving banishment happened on a crisp September evening, exactly 2 months before that fateful text. I had invited my parents, Michael and Charlotte and Rachel, to meet my boyfriend Nathan for dinner at my parents' house, with news I was excited to share. Nathan and I had been dating for 3 years after meeting at an art education fundraiser. He taught high school art in a public school, was working on his master's degree in education, and had the kindest heart of anyone I'd ever known. The evening started pleasantly enough, with my mother's signature roast and polite conversation. Nathan charmed my mother with compliments on her cooking and engaged my father with thoughtful questions about his business. I felt a flutter of hope that maybe, finally, my family would embrace someone I loved. After dessert, I reached for Nathan's hand under the table, took a deep breath, and made our announcement. We have some news, I smiled, the vintage sapphire ring catching the light as I extended my hand. We're engaged. The silence that followed lasted only seconds but felt eternal. My mother recovered first. Oh, well, this is sudden. How long have you been thinking about this? Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Before I could answer, my father set down his coffee cup with deliberate precision. Engaged? Jessica, don't you think you should establish your career more firmly before taking this step? Nathan squeezed my hand as I responded. Dad, I'm 32 with a stable career in graphic design. My latest client project just won an industry award. We're not rushing into anything. My father's gaze shifted to Nathan, assessing him like an underperforming investment. Nathan, teaching is an admirable profession, but have you considered how you'll provide for a family? Art teachers aren't exactly known for their earning potential. Nathan maintained his composure. Sir, I may not make a fortune, but I have no debt, save consistently, and find my work deeply fulfilling. Jessica and I have discussed our finances thoroughly. My brother Michael chimed in with false helpfulness. Have you looked into private schools? The public system is so unstable with budget cuts. A friend of mine teaches at Westridge Academy and makes almost 6 figures. I believe education should be accessible to all students, not just those who can afford private tuition, Nathan replied evenly, though I could feel tension in his hand. My sister Rachel stared at her plate, rearranging cake crumbs with her fork, saying nothing in our defense. The conversation deteriorated from there. Each question from my family carried thinly veiled judgments. How soon were we planning the wedding? Subtext. Hopefully long enough to break this off. Had we thought about housing? Subtext. You can't afford anything in a good neighborhood. What did Nathan's parents do? Subtext. Are they our kind of people? When Nathan excused himself to use the restroom, My father pounced. Jessica, you cannot be serious about this. The man is a public school teacher. What are you thinking? I'm thinking I love him and he treats me with respect and kindness, I replied, my voice shaking. Love doesn't pay mortgages, my father scoffed. You need to reconsider this engagement if you want our support. Your support shouldn't be conditional on approving my choice of husband. Of course it's conditional, he snapped. Everything in life is conditional. That's how the real world works. My mother attempted to smooth things over as usual. Jessica, your father is just concerned about your future. We want what's best for you. Nathan returned to a palpably tense atmosphere. We made our excuses and left shortly after, the congratulations I'd hoped for replaced by my mother's tight-lipped. We'll talk more about this later. In the car, I finally broke down. I'm so sorry. They're usually not this obvious about it. Yes, they are, Nathan said gently. This is how they've treated you for years. You just make excuses for them because they're family. The next week was a blur of ignored calls and texts from my parents and siblings. My mother's voicemails escalated from breezy, "Just checking in," to increasingly urgent, "Your father and I need to speak with you about this engagement situation." When I finally answered my phone, my father launched into a lecture about making emotional decisions without proper consideration of practical matters. Each of his concerns circled back to the same point. Nathan wasn't good enough because he didn't have money or status. 2 weeks after our announcement, I agreed to Sunday dinner, hoping the time apart had mellowed their reaction. It hadn't. The dinner featured subtle digs about Nathan's career wrapped in concern, questions about prenuptial agreements to protect my interests, and suggestions I was rushing into marriage because I was afraid of being alone. No one actually congratulated us. In the following weeks, the sabotage became more active. My mother suddenly remembered scheduling conflicts for every wedding venue I mentioned. Michael forgot to include Nathan in a family email thread discussing Thanksgiving plans. My father sent me articles about divorce rates and financial incompatibility. The superficial reconciliation we reached involved my pretending their behavior wasn't hurtful and them pretending to accept my decision while undermining it at every turn. This uneasy truce lasted until that November morning when my father's text made their true feelings unmistakably clear. The Thanksgiving exclusion text threw me into a painful period of reflection. Looking back at my childhood through adult eyes, I began recognizing patterns I'd normalized for decades. Financial control was my father's primary tool. He paid for my college education, a generosity he reminded me of whenever I considered choices he disapproved of. "We've invested too much in your future for you to throw it away on this," became his refrain when I considered a semester abroad in a program focused on international design rather than business-oriented graphics. The strings attached to his financial support formed an elaborate web. My first car, a high school graduation present, was mysteriously needed back when I chose RISD against his wishes. "Your mother needs a second vehicle now," he explained, though the car sat unused in our garage for months afterward. The replacement vehicle he eventually provided remained in his name, giving him leverage to question my whereabouts and activities. Sunday family dinners were mandatory regardless of other commitments. Missing one for a friend's art opening during college resulted in 3 days of silent treatment, followed by, "If your family isn't a priority, perhaps our support shouldn't be either." The implicit threat was clear enough that I never missed another dinner until moving 2 hours away for my first job. The Family Emergency Fund revealed the favoritism I'd long suspected, but couldn't prove. All 3 adult children were encouraged to contribute monthly to this account, supposedly available to any of us in crisis. When Michael needed capital for his first home purchase, the fund provided his down payment as a family investment. When I requested a loan to cover unexpected medical bills after a car accident, I was lectured about financial responsibility and offered a payment plan instead. My mother enforced my father's rules through emotional manipulation. "Your father worked so hard to give us this life," she would remind me when I questioned family decisions. "His business stress is tremendous. Why add to his burdens by fighting him on this?" Her guilt trips were subtle but effective, positioning any boundary setting as selfishness that hurt the entire family. Family vacations exemplified the Parker power dynamic. Destinations were always my father's choice, presented as settled decisions rather than family discussions. The year I suggested a trip to New Mexico to explore art communities, my father announced we'd be going to Bermuda instead because the networking opportunities are better there. My preferences were so consistently disregarded that I eventually stopped expressing them. The unwritten Parker family rules governed our lives with invisible but rigid boundaries. 1. Father's authority is absolute and unquestionable. 2. Mother manages emotional responses to father's decisions. 3. Appearances to outsiders matter more than internal family health. 4. Financial success is the primary measure of personal worth. 5. Family loyalty overrides individual needs or desires. 6. Criticism from William is tough love. Criticism of William is disrespect. Michael learned early to align himself with our father, gaining privilege through compliance. His teasing about my artsy career or sensitivity was permitted and even encouraged. Jessica can't take a joke. They'd chuckle when I objected to comments about my weight, boyfriend choices, or career progress. These weren't occasional jibes, but consistent undermining of my confidence and autonomy. Rachel's role as peacekeeper made her complicit in a different way. She would pull me aside after family conflicts with pleas to just apologize to Dad so things can go back to normal. When I recounted specific hurtful incidents, she'd respond with, "That's not exactly how it happened," or "You're exaggerating again." Her gaslighting was more painful than Michael's direct attacks because it came disguised as sisterly concern. My attempts at independence were systematically undermined. When I found my first apartment after college, my father insisted on co-signing the lease just in case. This gave him justification to drop by unannounced for safety checks and question my lifestyle choices. "I'm financially responsible for this apartment," he reminded me during one unwelcome visit when he disapproved of my roommate's boyfriend staying over. Career advice inevitably steered me toward choices that kept me within the family orbit. The graphic design internship I was excited about was dismissed as exploitative, while a position at his friend's marketing firm was presented as an opportunity too good to pass up. Each time I asserted independence, the pushback intensified until compliance seemed easier than constant conflict. The constant comparisons to more successful family members eroded my self-confidence. "Your cousin Megan just made partner at her law firm," or "Michael's college roommate just bought a vacation home in the Hamptons," were regular dinner conversation topics, invariably followed by pointed glances my way. My resentment grew alongside my diminishing self-worth. By my late 20s, I'd internalized so much criticism that I second-guessed even minor decisions. Choosing an outfit for family events became an anxiety-inducing process as I anticipated my father's inevitable comments on my appearance. Therapy became my lifeline at 30, initially sought for stress management because admitting family problems felt like betrayal. 6 sessions in, my therapist gently suggested the term emotional abuse to describe family patterns I'd been normalizing. 3 months later, she introduced another term that stopped me cold. Family scapegoat. "The scapegoat carries the family's disowned negative emotions," she explained. "They're often the truth teller, the one who sees the dysfunction clearly and can't pretend it doesn't exist. That makes them threatening to the family system." The validation was both healing and heartbreaking. I wasn't imagining the differential treatment. I wasn't too sensitive or dramatic. I was fulfilling a role assigned to me in a dysfunctional system that required someone to blame when perfection wasn't maintained. This realization began my painful journey toward establishing boundaries, a process my family interpreted as rebellion rather than self-preservation. By the time Nathan entered my life, bringing the perspective of someone raised in a healthy family system, I was already questioning patterns I'd once accepted as normal. His loving support accelerated my growth, while simultaneously making the contrast between healthy and unhealthy relationships impossible to ignore. The Thanksgiving text message was delivered with clinical precision exactly 2 weeks before the holiday. Its timing ensured maximum emotional impact while leaving me little time to make alternative plans. This wasn't an impulsive message sent in anger. It was a calculated move designed to punish my continued relationship with Nathan and force me back into compliance. My hands shook as I called my father immediately after reading it. "What do you mean I'm not invited to Thanksgiving?" I demanded when he answered, skipping any greeting. His voice was calm, detached. "It means exactly what it says, Jessica. The family discussed it, and we all agreed your attitude lately has been disrupting family harmony. We think it's better if you take some time to reconsider your priorities before rejoining family gatherings." My attitude? You mean my engagement to someone I love who you've never given a chance? This isn't just about your unfortunate choice of partner. It's about your increasing disrespect toward family values and traditions. Your mother is very upset by your behavior. "Let me speak to Mom," I insisted. "She's out shopping. I'll tell her you called." He ended the call before I could respond. My mother's tearful call came 3 hours later. "Jessica, sweetheart, we're all just concerned about you. You've been so different lately. If you could just apologize to your father for how you spoke to him at dinner last month, I'm sure this can all blow over." "Apologize for what, Mom? For defending Nathan when Dad insulted his career? For expecting to be treated with respect?" "You know how your father is," she sighed. "He expresses himself strongly when he cares. Just come by tomorrow, tell him you're sorry for the tension, and we can put this Thanksgiving business behind us." "So I'm expected to apologize for his behavior? That's not happening." "Why must you make everything so difficult?" Her voice hardened slightly. "This family functioned perfectly well before you decided to become so confrontational." After she hung up, my brother's text arrived. "Nice work, drama queen. Dad's in a mood now, and Mom's upset. You always have to make everything difficult." Rachel tried next, her approach more conciliatory, but equally manipulative. "Jess, can't you just smooth things over? Maybe come for dessert on Thanksgiving? Dad will have calmed down by then, and we all miss you. Family should be together for holidays." Standing in my apartment surrounded by these messages, each demanding I sacrifice my dignity and authentic self to maintain family harmony, something finally clicked into place. This family would never change. They would never see me clearly or value me for who I actually was. Every relationship was conditional, every interaction transactional. Nathan found me sitting on the kitchen floor, phone in hand, tears streaming down my face. "They don't want me at Thanksgiving," I managed to say. He sat beside me, arm around my shoulders. "What do you need right now?" "I don't know. Part of me wants to give in. Apologize for things I didn't do, pretend to be someone I'm not, just to keep the peace. I've been doing it my whole life." "You don't have to keep doing it," he said gently. "You don't have to keep trying to win their approval." That simple statement, permission to stop the exhausting pursuit of conditional love, broke something open inside me. For hours that night, Nathan listened as I poured out stories of manipulation, gaslighting, and emotional abuse I'd normalized for decades. By morning, I'd made my decision. I would take an indefinite step back from my family of origin, not in anger or retaliation, but as an act of self-preservation. Drafting the email took days. I wrote and rewrote, trying to be clear without being cruel, firm without being inflammatory. The final version was respectful but unambiguous. "I need to take some time away from family gatherings and communication. The dynamics within our family have become increasingly harmful to my mental health and self-worth. I love you all, but I need space to heal and establish healthier patterns of interaction. I'll reach out when I'm ready to discuss rebuilding our relationship on more equal and respectful terms." Hitting send triggered an immediate panic attack. Racing heart, shortness of breath, overwhelming fear. Years of conditioning had taught me that family rejection was the ultimate catastrophe. Nathan talked me through breathing exercises until the physical symptoms subsided, but the emotional aftershocks continued. The responses arrived within hours, each perfectly aligned with established family roles. Father, this is extremely disappointing and immature behavior, Jessica. After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay our love and support? When you're ready to act like an adult and apologize, we'll be here. Mother, Jessica, I'm heartbroken. Your father hasn't been able to focus on work since getting your email. How could you do this to us? Whatever issues you think exist can be resolved if you just try harder to understand our perspective. Michael, always so dramatic. Get over yourself and stop hurting Mom and Dad with your selfishness. Rachel, please don't tear apart the family like this. Whatever's wrong, we can fix it together. I'm worried about you. Each message confirmed the rightness of my decision while simultaneously triggering the guilt and self-doubt that had been programmed into me since childhood. It took every ounce of strength not to immediately apologize and retract my boundary. Thanksgiving arrived amid this emotional turmoil. Nathan's parents, aware of the situation, invited me to their home in Rhode Island. Walking into their modest, warm kitchen, I was struck by the contrast with the formal Parker Thanksgivings of my childhood. Here, people laughed easily. Opinions were expressed without fear. Small spills or mistakes didn't trigger tension. Try this. It's my grandmother's cranberry recipe, Nathan's mother said, offering a taste from the spoon she was stirring with. Such casual intimacy would never have happened in my mother's kitchen, where appearances always trumped authentic connection. After dinner, Nathan's father raised his glass. To Jessica, we're thankful you're part of our family now. The simple acceptance brought tears to my eyes. This was what family could feel like. Supportive rather than demanding. Accepting rather than judgmental. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was constantly walking on eggshells, waiting for the inevitable criticism or backhanded compliment. That night, in the guest bedroom of Nathan's childhood home, I finally allowed myself to grieve for the loving family I had never had and would never have. The pain was excruciating, but somehow cleaner than the chronic suffering of trying to earn conditional love. This, at least, was honest pain. I had naively assumed my family would respect my clearly stated boundary. Instead, they viewed it as a challenge to be overcome, a rebellion to be crushed. The week after Thanksgiving marked the beginning of an escalation campaign designed to bring me back under control. My mother and Rachel arrived unannounced at my apartment the following Tuesday evening. Through the peephole, I could see my mother's distressed expression and Rachel's uncomfortable posture. I didn't open the door. Jessica, we know you're in there. Your car is outside. My mother called through the door. We're worried about you. Please let us talk to you. I texted Rachel instead. I meant what I said about needing space. Please respect that and leave. We drove all this way, came the reply. Just 5 minutes. No. This is exactly the boundary violation I was talking about. I'll contact you when I'm ready. They left after 15 more minutes of intermittent knocking and pleading, but the invasion attempt had just begun. By week's end, 3 mutual friends had coincidentally reached out to check on me. Their conversations inevitably steered toward my family situation, with questions that echoed my mother's perspective. Aren't you being a bit harsh? And don't you think you'll regret missing family Christmas? Kelly, my oldest friend, finally admitted the truth over coffee. Your mom called me crying. Jessica, she said you've cut off all contact with no explanation, and she's terrified you're having some kind of breakdown. She asked me to find out what's really going on. Did she mention uninvited visits to my apartment? Or my clear email explaining I needed space? Or the fact that they uninvited me from Thanksgiving? I asked. Kelly's surprised expression told me everything. She just said you suddenly refused to speak to any of them and they don't understand why. The information control extended beyond friends. My father sent a carefully worded email about family heirlooms being reassessed and redistributed, with the clear implication that I would be excluded from receiving anything unless I returned to the fold. As Christmas approached, the pressure intensified exponentially. Family members I rarely heard from throughout the year suddenly felt compelled to reach out. Aunt Susan, my father's sister, who typically communicated only through annual Christmas cards, called one evening. Jessica, what's this about you refusing to speak to your parents? You're breaking your mother's heart during the holidays. Aunt Susan, with all due respect, you're only hearing one side of this story. What other side could there be? They're your parents. They've given you everything. The least you can give them is a phone call at Christmas. My cousin Emma, once close but now firmly in my father's orbit due to her job at his company, texted next. Everyone's talking about how you've changed since meeting Nathan. Your dad says he's isolating you from the family. That's a major relationship red flag, Jess. The social media campaign began in mid-December. My mother, who rarely posted personal content, suddenly shared daily throwback photos of family holidays, conspicuously excluding recent images that would have included Nathan. Her caption about missing my daughter this Christmas season garnered dozens of sympathetic comments, positioning her as the victim of my inexplicable cruelty. The financial pressure came next. The annual distribution from a family trust established by my grandparents accidentally omitted me for the first time in 10 years. When I contacted the trustee, my father's college friend, he seemed genuinely confused. I was told you'd requested your distribution be delayed until next quarter for tax purposes, he explained. That didn't come from you? No. And I'm quite certain that's not within my father's authority as trust administrator. I'll look into this immediately, he assured me, sounding concerned. The money appeared in my account the next day, along with a terse email from my father claiming administrative oversight. The escalation reached its peak when my boss called me into her office looking uncomfortable. Jessica, I received a strange call yesterday. A man identifying himself as your father expressed concerns about your mental health affecting your work performance. He suggested we might want to consider a leave of absence for you. My blood ran cold. What did you tell him? That your work has been exemplary, we have no concerns whatsoever, and any health discussions would be initiated by you directly. She hesitated before adding, Is everything okay? This seems extremely inappropriate. It's a family situation I'm handling, I explained, mortified. I'm so sorry he dragged you into it. Don't apologize for someone else's boundary violations, she said firmly. If he calls again, we'll consider it harassment. That evening, I changed my phone number, email address, and all social media settings to private. Nathan's parents, now fully aware of the situation, became fiercely protective, screening visitors to their home during our Christmas visit and redirecting any mail from my family. The boundary violations had become so extreme that I consulted an attorney specializing in harassment cases. Her advice was unambiguous. This behavior crosses several legal lines. A formal cease and desist letter might be necessary. The letter was drafted in legal language that left no room for misinterpretation. It detailed the specific boundary violations and clearly stated that continued contact attempts through third parties, workplace interference, or unannounced visits would result in further legal action. My father's response arrived by certified mail 3 days later. The single page bore his company letterhead and formal signature. I raised an ungrateful daughter who threatens legal action against her own family. Your mother is devastated. If this is the path you choose, so be it, but don't expect any reconciliation when your current relationship inevitably fails. Family was there before him and will be there after, but not if you continue this unconscionable behavior. Reading his words, I felt an unexpected sense of clarity. The man who claimed to love me unconditionally was explicitly stating that his love was, in fact, entirely conditional. The family that supposedly valued loyalty above all was abandoning me for choosing self-respect over submission. The letter confirmed what therapy had been helping me understand. What my family called love was actually control, and what they called loyalty was really obedience. Their escalating attempts to force my return revealed not concern for my well-being, but panic over losing their ability to dictate my choices. For the first time, I saw their behavior with complete clarity. unfiltered by the fog of familial obligation or childhood programming. This wasn't love. It had never been love. And that realization, while painful, was ultimately liberating. The 6 months following my family's escalation campaign were simultaneously the most difficult and most liberating period of my life. The initial guilt and grief were overwhelming. I would wake up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat, convinced I had committed an unforgivable act by choosing my own well-being over family harmony. Am I a terrible daughter? I asked my therapist during a particularly difficult session. Everyone says family should come first, no matter what. Family should come first in a healthy, reciprocal relationship, she corrected gently. But when family consistently harms your mental health and undermines your autonomy, prioritizing yourself isn't selfish. It's necessary for survival. Gradually, the crushing guilt began giving way to moments of clarity. I noticed physical symptoms I hadn't connected to family stress began disappearing. The persistent tension headaches that had plagued me for years occurred less frequently. The mysterious stomach issues that flared before family gatherings vanished completely. My sleep improved, and with it my energy and focus. My career flourished in this new atmosphere of reduced stress, without my father's constant criticism making me second-guess every decision. I trusted my creative instincts more fully. I took risks on projects I would have previously avoided for fear of failure and potential family mockery. One of these risks, an unconventional campaign for an environmental nonprofit, won a regional design award and brought several new clients to the firm. The nightmares about family confrontations, once weekly occurrences, gradually decreased in both frequency and intensity. Instead of waking in panic, I began processing the dreams as my subconscious working through years of suppressed emotions. An unexpected source of healing came from an online support forum for adult children of controlling parents. Reading stories from others who had experienced similar family dynamics was profoundly validating. These strangers understood nuances my closest friends couldn't grasp. The insidious nature of emotional abuse disguised as concern, the complex grief of mourning a relationship that never existed in the form you needed. It's like grieving someone who's still alive, wrote one forum member, perfectly capturing my experience. You're mourning the parent you needed and deserved but never had, while the actual parent continues to cause active harm. Through these shared experiences, I developed language for dynamics I'd struggled to articulate. The flying monkeys, family members, and friends sent to monitor and report back. The hoovering, attempts to suck me back into the family system when direct pressure failed. The love bombing, brief periods of affection and approval designed to keep me hooked on their validation. Nathan noticed changes in me that I was too close to see. You laugh differently now, he observed one evening as we cooked dinner together. More freely, without checking yourself. What do you mean? Before, you'd start laughing, then suddenly stop, like you remembered you weren't supposed to enjoy yourself too much. Now you just laugh. He was right. I'd been trained to moderate my emotions, to avoid appearing too happy, which might seem smug, or too sad, which would be attention-seeking. Without the constant internal regulation required to manage my family's perceptions, I was experiencing emotions more authentically. Wedding planning, which had begun as a source of stress, became a joyful process once freed from family expectations. We chose a small art gallery for the venue, designed unconventional invitations, and planned a menu that reflected our favorite cuisine rather than formal reception standards. The question of family invitations loomed large. After much discussion with my therapist and Nathan, I decided to extend olive branches in the form of carefully worded invitations to my parents and siblings. You are invited to celebrate our marriage, the invitations read. We ask that this day be approached with positive intentions and that all guests support our union with love and respect. Attached to my parents' invitation was a personal note. I would value your presence on this important day. If you choose to attend, I ask that you come with an open heart and refrain from negative comments about our relationship, careers, or life choices. This boundary is non-negotiable and essential for rebuilding trust between us. My father's response arrived by express mail. I cannot in good conscience attend a ceremony where the father of the bride is stripped of his traditional role and subjected to behavioral conditions. When you're ready to show proper respect, we can discuss reconciliation. My mother called, alternating between tears and thinly veiled guilt trips. I want to come, Jessica, but you know I can't come without your father. Marriage is about unity, and families should be united too. Even when one member of that family consistently disrespects and undermines another? I asked. Her silence spoke volumes. Michael declined with a generic congratulations card containing a gift of luxury dish towels, but no personal message. Only Rachel initially accepted, expressing genuine happiness for us and agreeing to our requested boundaries. 3 days before the wedding, Rachel called in tears. I can't come, Jess. Dad found out I was still attending and it's complicated. I'm so sorry. I want to be there, but keeping peace with Dad is more important. I finished for her. That's not fair. You don't understand the position I'm in. Actually, I understand exactly. I was in that position my entire life until I chose to step out of it. Despite the family-shaped hole in our guest list, the wedding day was perfect in ways I couldn't have imagined when still entangled in family dynamics. Without the pressure of performing for my father's approval or managing my mother's anxieties, I was fully present in each moment. Nathan's parents stepped in with unconditional support, his father offering a heartfelt toast that celebrated our authentic selves rather than conformity to tradition. Friends surrounded us with genuine joy, creating an atmosphere of acceptance that had never existed at Parker family gatherings. As we exchanged vows in the gallery surrounded by art, a career my father had dismissed as impractical, I realized I had created something my biological family had never provided. A space where love wasn't contingent on compliance, where differences were celebrated rather than corrected, where authenticity was valued above appearance. The family I choose gives me what my biological family never could, I wrote in my journal that night. The freedom to be fully myself and still be fully loved. 1 year into my marriage, on an ordinary Wednesday afternoon, my mother's name appeared on my phone for the first time in months. After a moment's hesitation, I answered, Jessica? You picked up. She sounded genuinely surprised. I've been thinking about you constantly. Could we meet for coffee sometime? Just the two of us? We arranged to meet at a cafe halfway between our homes, neutral territory that wouldn't trigger old patterns for either of us. When she arrived, I barely recognized her. My always perfectly presented mother looked older, her designer clothes replaced by a simple sweater and slacks, her trademark jewelry absent. You look well, she said, studying my face. Marriage agrees with you. I am well, I confirmed. Nathan and I are happy. She twisted her napkin nervously. I've missed you, Jessica. This past year has been difficult. I've had time to think about things, about how I treated you. What followed was an apology unlike any I'd heard from her before. Tears streamed down her face as she acknowledged her role as enabler and enforcer of my father's controlling behavior. I failed you as a mother. I was so focused on keeping peace with your father that I never protected you from the damage he was causing. Yet even in this moment of apparent breakthrough, old patterns emerged. We just didn't know how to handle your sensitivity, she added, subtly shifting responsibility back to my perceived deficiency rather than their behavior. It wasn't my sensitivity that was the problem, Mom. It was Dad's control and your enforcement of it. She flinched but didn't deny it. I know. Or at least, I'm trying to understand. I've been seeing a therapist too. This revelation stunned me. Mental health support had always been dismissed as unnecessary in our family, with my therapy framed as further evidence of my instability. We talked for 3 hours, moving between genuine connection and the gravitational pull of established dynamics. Her remorse seemed sincere, but she still struggled to fully acknowledge the extent of the harm or her complicity in it. Still, it was more self-reflection than I'd ever witnessed from her. Would you be open to continuing these conversations? She asked as we prepared to leave. I'd like to try to rebuild something between us, something healthier. I'm willing to try, I agreed cautiously. But I need to maintain my boundaries. Dad cannot be part of this process yet. She accepted this condition, and we began a careful negotiation of limited, structured contact. Coffee every other week, phone calls with clearly defined time limits. Topics that were temporarily off limits to prevent retreating into harmful patterns. 2 months into this tentative reconnection, a birthday card arrived from my father. Inside was a check for $1,000, a typical Parker gift where financial provision substituted for emotional connection, but no personal message beyond his signature. I returned the check with a brief note. Thank you for remembering my birthday. I cannot accept financial gifts while our relationship remains unresolved, but I appreciate the gesture. The indirect communication continued. My father would send impersonal emails about family business matters that required my attention. My mother would mention that your father asks about you without specifying what he actually said. It was clear he wanted reconnection, but on his terms, without acknowledging any wrongdoing or changing any behavior. In early spring, Michael's wife Charlotte reached out unexpectedly. They had recently welcomed their first child, a daughter named Emma, and Charlotte suggested healing the family rift for the children's sake. Emma should know her aunt, she said during our phone call, and any children you and Nathan might have should know their cousins. Can't we move past all this for the next generation? Her appeal was compelling, and meeting my niece did soften some of the hardened places in my heart. Holding the tiny, innocent baby who bore no responsibility for our family dysfunction reminded me that cycles can be broken, that new beginnings are always possible. Rachel's reconciliation attempt felt most genuine. Over lunch at her apartment, away from our parents' influence, she offered an apology that acknowledged her specific failures. I knew Dad was harder on you. I knew it wasn't fair, but I was so afraid of becoming his target that I stayed silent or even helped him focus on you instead. Her voice broke. I was a coward, and I'm so sorry, Jess. These individual reconnections eventually led to the first tentative family gathering. Dinner at a restaurant chosen specifically because it offered neutral territory and a natural time limit. My father agreed to my condition that Nathan be included and treated respectfully. For the first hour, everyone maintained carefully polite conversation. My father asked appropriate questions about our work and home, avoiding the loaded topics that typically triggered conflict. My mother beamed at the apparent harmony, while Michael and Rachel exchanged hopeful glances. By dessert, however, the old patterns began emerging. My father's comment about a mutual fund I should consider held the familiar note of condescension. His question about when we might start a family carried the implication that our current life wasn't quite complete or valid. His offer to help with our mortgage revealed he'd been investigating our financial situation without our knowledge. When Nathan mentioned his recent promotion to department chair, my father's response was telling. Well, that's certainly an achievement within the public school context. In the car afterward, Nathan squeezed my hand. You did well. You didn't take the bait. They're never going to change, are they? I asked, feeling both sadness and strange relief at the clarity. Your father probably won't, he acknowledged. But your mother seems to be trying. And Rachel, that's something. My mother's disappointment when I maintained my boundaries despite their superficial efforts at reconciliation was palpable. We're trying, Jessica. Why can't you meet us halfway? She asked during one of our coffee meetings. Meeting halfway still puts me in an unsafe place, I explained. Real reconciliation requires acknowledgement of harm and changed behavior, not just pretending everything is fine now. Your father is making an effort in his own way, she insisted. His way still involves controlling, judging, and diminishing me and my choices. That's not reconciliation. It's just a more polite version of the same dynamic. The hardest realization was accepting that my family's version of reconciliation meant returning to the established hierarchy with perhaps slightly softened edges. They wanted the comfort of restored family unity, without the discomfort of addressing the dysfunction that had fractured it. Learning to release the expectation that they would ever truly see me or change their behavior was paradoxically liberating. It allowed me to engage with them as they actually were, not as I wished them to be. I could love them without needing their approval. I could maintain connection without sacrificing my autonomy. Setting terms for continued contact that they struggled to respect became my practice ground for compassionate boundary maintenance. I would end phone calls when they became manipulative. I would decline invitations that felt like obligation traps. I would correct mischaracterizations of past events, calmly but firmly. I know this isn't easy for any of us, I told my mother during a particularly difficult conversation, but I can't go back to who I was before, and I won't pretend everything is fine when it isn't. So, we'll never be a normal family again? She asked tearfully. We were never a normal family to begin with, Mom. But maybe we can be something new, something healthier, even if it's messier and less picture-perfect than before. 2 years after cutting ties with my family, my phone lit up with an email from a name I hadn't seen in years, Cousin Emma. The subject line read simply, "Can we talk? No flying monkey business, I promise." Emma had been among those who criticized my boundaries early on, but something in her message felt different. We arranged to meet at a quiet cafe near her office. "I've wanted to reach out for months," she admitted, stirring her coffee nervously. "You probably hate me after everything." "I don't hate you," I assured her, "but I was hurt by some of the things you said. I know, I was wrong. And the truth is," she lowered her voice, "I've always admired how you stood up to Uncle William. No one does that." Over the next hour, Emma revealed her own struggles with our family's toxic patterns. As my father's niece and employee, she experienced a different but equally damaging version of his control. Her initial criticism of my boundaries had stemmed from fear rather than disagreement, fear that if I successfully escaped the family system, the pressure on those remaining would intensify. When you first set those boundaries, everyone panicked. Uncle William was obsessed with bringing you back in line, but when you held firm, it made me wonder if I could do the same in my own way. Emma's coffee invitation opened a floodgate. Within months, other family members began reaching out privately, each sharing their own experiences with the dysfunction I'd named and rejected. Rachel's transformation proved most surprising. After beginning therapy to address anxiety issues, she had experienced a profound awakening about our family dynamics. My therapist asked why I always feel responsible for managing everyone's emotions. She told me during a sisters-only dinner. It never occurred to me that wasn't normal until I said it out loud to someone outside the family. As Rachel's understanding evolved, she became a quiet advocate for healthier boundaries within the family system. She didn't confront our father directly, that wasn't her style, but she stopped enabling his behavior and began supporting others who questioned it. The most unexpected outreach came from Michael's wife, Charlotte. After their initial reconnection attempt for the children, she contacted me for coffee without Michael. "We had a huge fight last week," she confided. "Your father tried to dictate how we should parent Emma, and when Michael didn't immediately agree, William threatened to reconsider their partnership arrangement. It was exactly what you described happening to you for years." This conflict had opened Charlotte's eyes to the family's dysfunction in ways abstract discussions never could. Michael's always been the golden child, so he never experienced what you did. But now that your father is turning those same tactics on our family, he's starting to see. As word spread through the extended family grapevine that I was receptive to individual relationships outside the control of my father, more relatives made contact. My mother's sister Susan, who had once berated me for breaking my mother's heart, called with an unexpected apology. "I believed what I was told without question," she admitted. "That was wrong of me. After seeing how William treated you at Michael's daughter's christening, I realized there was much more to the story. The family alliances were shifting like tectonic plates. Those who maintained unwavering loyalty to my father found themselves increasingly isolated as others began questioning the dynamics they'd long accepted as normal. My mother remained caught in the painful middle ground between recognizing the dysfunction and remaining loyal to her husband. During one of our coffee dates, she broke down completely. "I don't know how to be in both worlds," she confessed. "When I'm with you, I see everything clearly. When I go home to your father, I slip back into old patterns. I've been doing it for so long, I don't know another way to be." The validation from family members who had witnessed the dysfunction firsthand was profoundly healing. Each conversation confirmed that I hadn't imagined or exaggerated the emotional abuse, that my response hadn't been overreaction, but self-preservation. My position as both scapegoat and trailblazer created complex emotions. There was vindication in others finally seeing what I'd named years earlier, but also sadness that it took their own painful experiences rather than my testimony to convince them. The silver lining emerged in the deeper connections formed with family members on new, healthier terms. Conversations with cousins, aunts, and siblings evolved from superficial pleasantries to authentic sharing. Without my father's controlling presence, dictating acceptable topics and perspectives, family members revealed dimensions of themselves previously hidden. My confidence in engaging with family grew as I practiced maintaining boundaries without apology or justification. I could now attend limited family functions without feeling diminished, choosing when and how to participate based on my own well-being rather than obligation. The watershed moment came during a cousin's wedding where several family factions were present. Rather than the anticipated tension, I found myself surrounded by supportive relatives who created a buffer between me and my father's disapproval. Where once I would have been isolated in family gatherings, I now had allies who understood the dynamics at play. Following this positive experience, Nathan and I decided to host our own Thanksgiving gathering the following year. We invited the growing circle of family refugees who sought healthier connections: Rachel, Emma, and her partner, two cousins with their families, Aunt Susan, and a few others who had reached out over time. "This isn't about creating division," I explained to Rachel when she worried about excluding our parents. "It's about creating space for connection without control. Anyone who can respect boundaries is welcome." Our Thanksgiving table looked nothing like the formal Parker gatherings of my childhood. Children interrupted conversations without being scolded for rudeness. Political disagreements were expressed without relationship-threatening anger. Food was appreciated rather than critiqued. Laughter came easily and often. As I looked around at this new configuration of family, some related by blood, others by choice, I realized we had created something my father could never control or diminish: authentic connection based on mutual respect rather than power and obligation. "You've started a revolution," Emma joked as she helped clear dishes. "A quiet family revolution." It wasn't a perfect resolution. My father remained entrenched in his position. Some family members still straddled uncomfortable middle ground. Old patterns occasionally emerged in new contexts. But it was genuine progress, messy and real and hopeful, in ways I never imagined possible when I first received that excluding text message 3 Thanksgivings ago. 3 years have passed since the text message that changed everything. As I reflect on the journey from exclusion to empowerment, I'm struck by how completely my life has transformed, not just in relation to my family, but in my understanding of myself and what I deserve from relationships. My parents and I maintain occasional contact on strictly limited terms. My father calls on major holidays and my birthday, our conversations brief and surface level. He has never directly acknowledged the harm or apologized, but he has learned that attempting to control or criticize me results in immediate conversation ending. It's an imperfect arrangement, but one that allows a thread of connection without endangering my mental health. My mother has taken more meaningful steps toward building a healthier relationship. Our weekly coffee meetings continue, though we still navigate difficult moments when she slips into enabling patterns or attempts to broker peace without addressing the underlying issues. Her progress is genuine but inconsistent. The programming of 40 years doesn't disappear overnight. The freedom I've found in celebrating holidays without walking on eggshells has been revelatory. Our home has become a gathering place for friends and family members who, like us, prioritize authentic connection over obligation or performance. Our Thanksgiving tradition has expanded to include others seeking refuge from their own family dysfunction, creating a chosen family that grows more meaningful each year. Nathan and I have had many deep conversations about starting our own family. The prospect of parenthood initially terrified me. What if I unconsciously repeated the patterns I'd been raised with? Through therapy and extensive reading about breaking intergenerational cycles, I've gained confidence in our ability to create a healthier family environment than the one I experienced. You're already breaking the cycle, my therapist reminded me during a session focused on these fears. The awareness and intentionality you're bringing to these decisions is exactly what prevents repetition. The support system we've built with other family members who recognize the dysfunction has been invaluable. Rachel, now in her second year of consistent therapy, has become a true ally rather than a peacekeeper. We speak weekly, our relationship deeper and more authentic than ever before. Her journey toward understanding our family dynamics has helped heal wounds between us that once seemed permanent. My brother Michael remains more distant, though the birth of his second child prompted some softening. While he still maintains closer ties with our father, business disagreements have created space for him to question patterns he previously accepted without thought. Our relationship is cautious but evolving, built on mutual respect for different perspectives rather than pressure to conform. My career has flourished in ways that would have been impossible under my family's critical oversight. The design studio I launched with 2 colleagues last year has already won several significant clients, validating my creative vision in tangible ways. When our team received an industry award for innovation, I didn't experience the reflexive diminishment of accomplishment that once accompanied every success. The perspective gained from distance has allowed me to see my family clearly without the intense anger that initially fueled my boundary setting. I understand now that my father's controlling behavior stems from his own deep insecurities, his fear of losing status and relevance. My mother's enabling comes from generational patterns of women sacrificing authenticity for security. This understanding doesn't excuse their behavior but contextualizes it, allowing me to release some of the personal hurt without inviting further harm. The lessons learned about healthy relationships and boundaries have influenced every aspect of my life. I've become more discerning about friendships, recognizing early warning signs of one-sided or manipulative dynamics. I've grown comfortable expressing needs and setting limits in professional contexts without fear of rejection or abandonment. The grief still surfaces occasionally, usually during milestone moments like the birth of Michael's children or Rachel's recent engagement. I mourn the family relationship I never had, and now never will have. My therapist helped me recognize this grief as both valid and necessary, a process of accepting reality rather than clinging to false hope of magical transformation. In an unexpected development, I found purpose in mentoring young adults from controlling families. What began as informal support for a colleague's daughter has evolved into volunteer work with a community organization serving first-generation college students navigating family expectations. Sharing hard-earned wisdom about boundary setting and self-trust has become profoundly healing. The blog I started anonymously about family estrangement has connected me with others walking similar paths. Comments like, "You put into words exactly what I've been feeling, and your story gave me courage to stand up for myself," remind me that breaking silence around family dysfunction helps others feel less alone and confused. I've come to understand forgiveness, not as reconciliation or relationship restoration, but as personal release from the consuming anger that once threatened to define me. I can acknowledge the damage done without allowing it to determine my future. This forgiveness is for my peace, not their absolution. The text message that once devastated me. "We all agreed you're not invited to Thanksgiving. It's better for everyone," remains saved in my phone, not as a source of pain, but as a reminder of how far I've come and the strength it took to choose self-respect over toxic connection. What was intended as punishment became catalyst for liberation. As I look around our dining table, this Thanksgiving, surrounded by chosen family gathered in authentic celebration, I feel profound gratitude for the painful journey that led here. The belonging I sought from my family of origin has been created in this circle of people who value me for exactly who I am, not who they need me to be. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family? What helped you find the courage to prioritize your well-being over others' expectations? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this journey resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe for more conversations about healing family relationships. And if you know someone struggling with similar dynamics, sharing this video might help them feel less alone. Remember that building a life on your own terms isn't selfish. It's necessary for becoming the person you're meant to be. Thank you for listening, and may you find the courage to create the life and relationships you truly deserve.